Let's talk about Morris Chestnut. Because when we talk about Black Hollywood leading men, I feel like Morris Chestnut doesn't always get discussed with the weight he deserves. And yeah, we know he's fine, but let's not act brand new. Morris Chestnut has been fine since before some of us even understood what fine was, okay? But what makes his legacy so interesting is that it was never just about looks. It was his presence, his calmness, his discipline, his consistency, the way he could walk into a scene and not have to do too much, but still have everybody's attention. I know for me, it was the scene in The Best Man when he walked into that club. That scene is iconic to me. You hear me? Now, I had already seen him in Boys in the Hood at that point, but to this day, that moment has always been my favorite Morris Chestnut moment. And I need you guys to do me a favor. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite Morris Chestnut moment. Now let's get into it. Welcome to the K Perspective, where I share my perspective on different topics, and I invite you to share your perspective in the comments. Morris Lamont Chestnut was born on January 1st, 1969 in Cerritos, California. He grew up in Southern California and went to Richard Gere High School and later studied finance and drama. I find that interesting because he was not just some person who stumbled into Hollywood with no direction. He had that balance of creativity and practicality. He understood performance, but he also had a business mind. Before Hollywood fully knew his name, one of his early professional acting roles was on Freddy's Nightmares, which was connected to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Y'all remember that? Freddy Krueger? But of course, the role that changed everything was Ricky Baker in Boyz in the Hood. And can we just pause right there? Because Ricky Baker was not just a character. Ricky was a cultural moment. When people talk about Boyz in the Hood, they still talk about that scene. They still talk about the emotion. They still talk about how real it felt. Morris Chestnut came into his first major film role and gave us a performance that people are still affected by decades later. And what made it so powerful was that Ricky represented hope. He was a young man trying to make it out the hood. He had talent, he had a future, he had a child, he had responsibility, and he was just trying to do something with his life. That's why that role hit so hard. Morris didn't play Ricky like a stereotype. He played him with innocence, pressure, fear, ambition, and humanity.
Actually, I was thinking about majoring in business. See, I got this friend named Trey who's always talking about going into business and all. Plus, I like computers. Maybe I could do that. What do you think?
Young brother, I think you can do anything you put your mind to.
From there, Morris Chestnut became one of those actors who kept showing up in projects that mattered to the culture. He was in The Inkwell, Under Siege 2, G.I. Jane, The Brothers, Two Can Play That Game, Like Mike, Ladder 49, Think Like a Man, The Perfect Guy, The Call, and of course, The Best Man. Now, The Best Man is a whole different level of legacy because Lance Sullivan, honey, that role is part of Black movie history. Lance was complicated, but he was talented, faithful in some ways, flawed in other ways. He was prideful, emotional, unforgettable, and Morris made him believable. He could be charming one minute, hurt the next minute, and then have you mad at him and rooting for him at the same time. And that's not easy to do. And then he came back later for The Best Man Holiday, and later The Best Man, The Final Chapters. And you could see how the character had grown and aged. He struggled some and he changed. That's one of the things I appreciate about Morris Chestnut's character. He didn't just have one moment in the 90s and disappear. He kept evolving. He also had major television roles. He starred in Rosewood, appeared in The Resident, played Corey Cash in Reasonable Doubt, and most recently starred as Dr. John Watson in Watson. So even after 3 decades in the business, Morris Chestnut is still booked, still visible, and still respected. But before we move too far ahead, I gotta bring up a cameo that real Living Single fans remember. Morris Chestnut appeared on Living Single as Hamilton Brown, the handsome man upstairs. And baby, that episode was an event. Khadijah, Max, and Regine were all interested in him, and the audience actually got to call in and vote on who they wanted him to go on a date with. And I remember I was about 8 years old when this happened, and I remember even my mother called in to vote. That's how serious TV used to be. Now, if you haven't seen that episode, I won't spoil it to tell you who ended up getting picked, but I do recommend you go watch it. But those who know. And this was before social media, before you had posts, hashtags, before live tweeting. You had to actually pick up the phone and participate. And that's why people still talk about it to this day, because it wasn't just a guest appearance. It was interactive television before interactive television became normal. And let's be honest, only Morris Chestnut could walk into Living Single and have Khadijah, Max, and Regine all acting like, wait a minute, who is this? That was peak 90s television. Now, another reason people respect Morris Chestnut so much is because he's managed to be a Hollywood heartthrob without building his whole public image around any scandal. And the big part of that conversation is his marriage.
We're celebrating your 30th wedding anniversary this year.
Morris Chestnut has been married to his wife Pam since 1995. They have 2 children together, Grant and Paige. And what I love is that whenever he talks about his wife, he talks with respect. He doesn't make it seem like marriage is easy or like they have some magical secret that nobody else has. He actually said he wishes he knew the secret because if he did, he would sell it. But what he does talk about is respect, growing together, not hitting below the belt, and maintaining privacy. Now that's important because in Hollywood, where everybody wants access to everything, Morris and Pam have kept their marriage protected. They're not giving the public every argument, every issue, every private detail. And honestly, I think that's part of why they've lasted so long. Everything is not for public consumption. Morris has said that when he first met Pam, he noticed qualities in her that made him think she would be a great partner and a great mother. He noticed how she cared for her nephew, how she respected her mother, and how she respected her family. That tells me he wasn't just looking at her beauty, he was paying attention to her character. And that says a lot about him. Because a man who's only impressed by looks is going to choose differently than a man who's looking at values, respect, family, and how someone treats the people close to them. He also called Pam the star of their family and talked about how she holds everything down at home, which allows him to go out and focus on his work. And regardless of how people feel about traditional marriage roles, the bigger point is this: he gives her the credit. He acknowledges her. He speaks about her like she's essential to the life he's built. And that adds another layer to his image. Morris Chestnut is not just a romantic lead on screen. He's also lived a private, steady family life off screen. And that kind of consistency is rare in entertainment. In 2022, Morris Chestnut received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Yay! And that was a full circle moment because this is a man who started with a role that became one of the most memorable performances in Black cinema. And decades later, he's standing there with his family, being honored for a body of work that spans film, television, romance, drama, action, and comedy. And that star matters because sometimes we don't realize how much someone has contributed until we stop and look at the full resume. Morris Chestnut has been a part of so many projects that shaped our conversations, our memories, and our culture. And now he's also stepping into business in a very interesting way. He's one of the names behind Sable Bourbon, along with the Best Man family, Malcolm D. Lee, Taye Diggs, and Harold Perrineau. And I actually love that connection because the Best Man was always about friendship, brotherhood, celebration, complicated relationships, and legacy. So to see them take that real life bond and turn it into a business venture makes sense. They've been doing bottle signings and meet and greets. I am happy to say that I was at one of those meet and greets. They've also been doing events promoting the brand, and the fans are showing up because it's not just about the bourbon, it's about the nostalgia, it's about the best man. It's about seeing these men still connected after all these years. And that's what makes Morris Chestnut's story so special to me. He's not just one of those actors whose legacy is only tied to one role, even though Ricky Baker alone would have been enough to make him unforgettable, but he kept going. He became Lance Sullivan. He became a romantic lead. He became a TV lead. He became a husband people admire. He became a father. He became a Walk of Fame honoree. And now he's also connected to business and brand building. So when we talk about Morris Chestnut, let's not reduce him to the fine actor from Boyz n the Hood. Yes, he is that, but he's also one of the most consistent Black leading men of his generation. He's a man who gave us memorable characters, protected his private life, honored his wife publicly, stayed relevant without constantly chasing controversy, and built a career that has lasted over 30 years. And honestly, that deserves more flowers. So my question for you is this: when you think about Morris Chestnut's career, what role do you think defines his legacy the most? Is it Ricky from Boyz n the Hood, Lance from The Best Man, his Living Single cameo, or do you think his real legacy is the way he's carried himself all these years? Because to me, Morris Chestnut is not just a 90s heartthrob, he's a blueprint for longevity, discipline, and quiet impact in Hollywood. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video if you did enjoy it, and make sure you are subscribed and have your notifications on so you're notified every time I post a new video or when I go live. Be blessed.